Welcome to the Real Estate Finder podcast. I'm Matthew Maschler, real estate broker with the Signature Real Estate Companies here in the great state of Florida. And I record these things in advance, but the Florida Dolphins, the Miami Dolphins, did win their game yesterday. So I am wearing my Miami Dolphins shirt to celebrate. And that's what we're actually going to talk about today on this podcast. What is appropriate? How to present yourself on a Zoom and what's appropriate to wear, etc. This shirt's a tweener, right? It's a collared shirt. It's kind of nice. It's not as casual as a t-shirt. Can you show up to work in this? I don't know. Do you show up on a Zoom to this? It really depends. That's why I chose this shirt to really talk about presenting on Zoom. And like I've done a few times before, with some success, trying to kill two birds with one. Kill two birds at once. I am going to be recording some YouTube videos. So this is another one of those behind the scenes on my YouTube videos here on the Real Estate Finder podcast. So bear with me. And welcome back to the Real Estate Finder YouTube channel. I'm Matthew Maschler with Signature Real Estate. And today I want to talk to you about something very important. It is how to look professional on Zoom. All right. It has been many years since COVID shut down the world, and we've all as a society embraced Zoom. I know before COVID, I came to Zoom kicking and screaming. Before that, we always had our conference calls, but Zoom and the other virtual meetings has replaced the traditional conference call, and I think it's going very well. But I still, every day or every meeting, have to battle certain people who are not looking their best, not presenting themselves in a professional way on Zoom, and that's what I want to address today in these videos. All right, so join me. First things first, let's talk about how to look more professional on Zoom. And I'm going to tell you what not to do, what not to wear, how not to present yourself on Zoom. All right. But before we begin, I want you to bear with me. You might be thinking to yourself, how am I going to listen to a guy tell me how to present myself on Zoom? He's wearing a Dolphins shirt. So I will say the Dolphins won last night. And I know I make these videos in advance. I want them to be evergreen and last all year and for generations. So, maybe it's not even football season when you're watching this, but this is what you should not do on Zoom, right? Just because the Dolphins won doesn't mean you should go to your work meeting wearing a Dolphins shirt. All right. And that's kind of why I wore this one. This one is a little bit of an in-betweener, right? It's not a t-shirt, right? It's a polo. Maybe it looks a little bit better, but honestly, quite frankly, don't show up for an important work meeting wearing this, right? And that's why tongue-in-cheek, that's why I put it on today, because we're talking about how to present yourself on Zoom. And I know that part of you are looking at me and you're already questioning, you're already doubting, why should I listen to this guy if he's dressed like that? And that's exactly my point, and that's why I did it. Because let me tell you something. At my company, we start every week, Monday morning, with a 10-minute company-wide Zoom. That way, wherever you are in the world, whatever time zone, whatever it is, we could all get together and talk about news and things that are important in our company just for a few minutes. All right? It is it's a great way to start the week, especially when you are a little bit more virtual than we all used to be when we worked in an office, because, that way you wake up, you shower, you get ready to focus on Monday morning going to work. You show up for work, you get the 10-minute meeting, and now you're ready to take on the day, and that's very important. But this morning, someone was lying in bed, head on a pillow. Can you imagine? Can you imagine if we were working in an office, if it was still the 80s or 90s, and you came into work in your pajamas, right? That's the presentation. That's what this person purported to look like. They thought it was okay, just like I thought it was okay to wear my Dolphins shirt. They thought it was okay to show up at a work meeting on their pillow, lying in bed. All right. That is not being a professional. That is not taking the job serious. And that is not taking the other people that you work with seriously. So be professional. Wear something presentable. What level of what you wear, that's up to you and what your job is. But if you're a real estate agent, you don't have to wear a suit to a Zoom. You could wear a polo. You should wear a collared shirt, not a Dolphin shirt. But you should wear a collared shirt. You should look good. You should look professional at all times, even if it's a company-wide Zoom and you're not talking to clients, because how you're treating your fellow agents, your coworkers, and your supervisors, it really makes an impression on who you are and how you treat the job and how people are going to treat you. We all decide what level of seriousness we're going to take any Zoom meeting, right? But some people have their cameras on and some people have their cameras off. How rude, right? Can you imagine if you walked into a conference room and you were talking with 20 or 30 people at your company, at your business, and someone was sitting there in their chair with their back to the room. And as the meeting happened, everybody's talking, and one person's sitting there like this for an entire meeting for 35 minutes. You would never sit with your back to the room during a conference, right? And for that same reason, you don't show up at a work meeting. If it's a lecture, if it's a continuing education, sure, have your camera off, do whatever you want. But if you're at a meeting, at a company-wide meeting, and your camera is off, you might as well be sitting with your back to the room. It's rude, it's disrespectful to the people that put the work together to make the presentation or to talk about, to create the agenda of what they're doing. It separates people who take their job seriously from people who are just phoning it in. And if that's the impression that you want to make on your bosses, on your supervisors, and your coworkers, when it's time for review, when it's time for bonuses, when it's time for raises, if that's the impression you want to make, someone who's phoning it in and not someone who's taking the opportunity to treat this seriously, that's the impression you are making, whether you choose to or not. So camera on, right? I think you should be at a desk with your computer, right? We know who's at a computer because the screen looks like this. We know who's on their iPhone because their screen looks like that, all right? If you don't know what I'm saying, all right, we'll start over. We'll go on a Zoom. But when you're on your iPhone, you look like this. Your letterbox, the sides are blacked out. When you're at your desk, you look proper, you're tuned in. My agents, when you come to my company-wide Zoom, or anyone who comes to a business meeting, I have people who want to pitch me and they give me proposals. Some are sitting at a desk and they're taking this seriously. Some are in their car driving. Some are out for a walk. You want to be on a walk? Go for a walk. Don't do that on my time. You're going to pitch me? You want me to hire you for your business? You want me? You're a mortgage broker. You want me to send you referrals? You're a a guy who works at cameras making YouTube videos. That's how you want to treat me on a Zoom at a meeting. I think you really, really want to focus. Be at your desk in front of a computer like this, so that people can see what you're doing. When we're doing, I'm talking about my company because that's my experience. But this goes for all companies, right? If there's 30 real estate agents on a call, the ones that are in a car driving, the ones that are out on a walk, right? If you're selling, all right, if you're selling $20 million a year, do whatever the fuck you want. I don't care, right? But if you are not crushing it, if you are not killing it, if you are not the absolute best at what you do, take meetings seriously and take Zoom seriously. I'm going to Zoom with a client. Either they set up the Zoom or I set up the Zoom and I said, all right, I will talk to you at this day, at this time. And then I show up. I'm in a car? That's disrespectful. I'm out for a walk? That's disrespectful. Be at your desk. If you don't have a desk, rent a desk. There's plenty of virtual offices where you can rent a desk for a day, or if you're at Signature, if you're one of my agents, I'll hook you up with a cubicle or a desk somewhere so you can be present, right? But you do not, unless you are the freaking boss, you do not want to be driving in your car or on a walk with your camera like this while you're at a Zoom. It shows that you're not being serious. It's disrespectful to the person who is trying to communicate with or who you are trying to communicate with. So make sure you're at a desk, stationary, not moving, not walking, not on your phone, and zoomed in with your camera on and you're dressed properly. Working from home or working virtually can be lonely, right? People miss that interaction. And back in the day, if you had a meeting, you show up a few minutes early, you can talk to your coworkers before the meeting. I like to show up at a Zoom early. If you're the host of the Zoom, it is nice to log in a few minutes early to let people enter the room and exchange pleasantries. You may think it's not important, but it's nice. Hey, how was your weekend? Did you have a happy Thanksgiving? Whatever. Exchange some pleasantries as people are coming into the room, and wait for them. And don't start, so if the Zoom is scheduled for 10 a.m., don't turn the Zoom on first thing 10 a.m. and then people are starting to file in, right? Be there a few minutes early. Let people into the room a few minutes early so that they can exchange some pleasantries and get rolling just as if we were still connecting, because people deeply, deeply, deeply need and miss and crave those human connections. So there are ways to replicate those human connections online. And one of the things is, as the host of the meeting, is to open up the room a few minutes early, 10 minutes early. And that way, anyone who is in the room early, they can chat a little bit. You can talk, gossip, bullshit a little bit before the meeting starts. And then when the official meeting does start, if people are still entering the room, don't start the meeting. Make sure that there's no one in your waiting room, because I can't tell you how many times I've been in a waiting room and the host hasn't let me in and I missed the first few minutes of the meeting. It's very frustrating. When I log in a few minutes early and I'm waiting and I'm finally let into the meeting and I miss the first minute or two, all right, I don't like it. So really think about that as a host. Be there a few minutes early. As a guest, be there a few minutes early, logged in, not eating. No one wants to see you eat your breakfast. If you have a coffee or water, I don't have a problem with that, but be careful with that. Ride the mute button. The mute button is your friend, right? I always make sure to enter with the mute button. Oh, I'm sorry, but another thing. When you enter the meeting, don't think everybody's been waiting for you. Don't enter the meeting and just start talking and start saying hi to everybody, because you're going to interrupt whoever was there first. Can't tell you how many times someone barges into a Zoom and starts talking as if nobody was there before them. So enter, mute button, gauge what's going on before you talk. Another subject I want to talk about, and it is the subject of urban legend, but if for whatever reason you're just going to phone it in and you're not really going to participate, and maybe you're not dressed decently, or maybe you don't have a proper backdrop, maybe just shut off all the lights when you Zoom in, right? Just because you're just not sure how much, is that camera on for 1 second when you enter before you can toggle the video off. So maybe just go into the closet, shut off all the lights when you enter the Zoom, and then enter the Zoom and shut off all your cameras and shut off your mute button. Because I can't tell you how many times we've had people enter a Zoom dressed inappropriately. And when I say inappropriately, I'm not talking about a Dolphins shirt or casually or pajamas. I'm talking inappropriately. And yes, we never fails. We have to tell you the story. And I swear to God, this is a true story. I would not believe it if I was not in the Zoom where somebody walked in with their laptop, carried their laptop into the bathroom, set the laptop down on the floor, proceeded to drop trow with the camera looking up at them. This was a realtor in our office. I am telling you, they moved out of state. It was so embarrassing. And everyone on the Zoom was yelling, no, don't do it. And she wasn't listening. And she dropped out. I'm telling you, ask anyone at the Signature Real Estate Companies, ask anyone in senior management. This is a true story. I only recently heard that this lady moved out of state, but I mean, how could she not, right? Yes, don't drop trow. Don't go to the bathroom. No flow of water is allowed on the telephone, on a Zoom, on a conference call. No one wants to listen to water flowing. So make sure on a Zoom you are not doing that. You're on mute. You're on mute. I can't tell you how many times I'm on a Zoom and someone starts talking, but they're on mute. So they don't realize that nobody can hear them, and everyone else on the Zoom is saying, you're on mute, you're on mute. So be careful. The mute button is your friend, but be careful when you are talking, make sure to unmute it, right? You don't look effective. You don't look productive. You don't look like someone who's done this before if you're on a Zoom and you're talking and you're on mute. Also, make sure that you have a good camera angle. Make sure the camera is looking directly at you, not up your nose, not at your forehead, not from the side. Very important to make sure. Really, you have to make sure you've done this before, right? If you haven't, practice with someone. Practice Zoom with a friend or a relative. It's an important skill to learn. You don't want to look like you haven't done this before. So very, very important to look professional. A very powerful tool on Zoom that's often overlooked is the chat feature. You don't want to ignore the chat. And I'm telling you, everyone does. There are people that ask questions in the chat. Maybe they don't want to interrupt the Zoom for whatever reason. So people will ask a question in the chat. And as a host or as someone who's managing the Zoom, don't ignore the chat. Sometimes I will go into the chat, and there's different things you can do in chat. You can message just one person, or you can message everyone in the chat. And one thing I like to do in the chat is to so if it's a signature Zoom company-wide, I like to message my agents only. Even just a good morning, right? I'm curious how many of them respond, because are they ignoring the chat? Because they could be at the Zoom doing other things, And if they're ignoring the chat, they're not being productive. I'm curious who responds to me in the chat. So sometimes there's important questions in the chat. Sometimes you can participate in the chat. So don't ignore the chat. And not that I'm testing people, but I am sending individual messages in the chat just to see who responds to me. So don't ignore the chat. Now, when it comes to asking a question, you really have to understand, and it depends on who's running the Zoom, because you get to kind of know the host, or you get to know the moderator. Some hosts like when you raise your hand like this. There's a feature called raise your hand, but some hosts are oblivious to it. So you really have to watch what's going on, see what other people in the Zoom are doing, see what your host is doing. So you know if you want to ask a question, you have to really decide, are you going to interrupt? Are interruptions warranted? Are they asked for? So can you interrupt? And if you're going to interrupt, how are you going to do it? By raising your hand, by flagging your profile, and or by just shouting it out. Hey, I have a question. Hey, Matt, I have a question. That's one way to do it. It's perfectly fine in the right Zoom. Hey, Matt, I have a question. And then that way it interrupts me from speaking, or whoever's from speaking, and it gets you to ask the question. So get the flavor of your Zoom, figure out if it's okay to interrupt, and figure out how. Raise your hand. And one more thing that drives me crazy, and this just might be a pet peeve of mine. We were talking about the chat feature. This isn't a train station. You don't have to announce your departure. If you have to go because you have a meeting, hey, I'm going to go, I have a meeting. You don't have to put that in the chat. Nobody cares. Unless you're trying to get yourself over, right? When I see someone trying to put that in a chat, I see someone who's trying to call attention to themselves. So you don't have to go in the chat and say that you're leaving. You don't have, nobody cares unless you think it's something where somebody might call on you. If you think you're going to get called on. And one more thing, if the Zoom is going over the time and you have to leave, if you were an essential person to the Zoom, you can interrupt and say, hey guys, I have to run. But if you're not an essential person, you don't have to go to the chat. Just leave. Just get the hell out of the room. It's fine. Nobody cares. Another real breach of etiquette. Don't take out your phone during a meeting. You're on a Zoom, someone's presenting on a particular subject, and you get a phone call. Right? If you were in a face-to-face meeting, if we were at a conference room table, you wouldn't take that phone call. So if you're at a Zoom, don't put yourself on mute, take that phone call, and ignore everyone in the room. We could all see you. It's rude. All right? So don't take a phone call in the middle of your Zoom. If you have to, I guess shut off your camera, because nobody wants to see you sitting there chatting like this while you're on a Zoom. I think what it all boils down to is treat a Zoom as if it's an in-person meeting. Don't do what you wouldn't do in person. So don't eat, don't get up, don't take a phone call, don't drop trowel, don't just get up and leave. Treat the Zoom as if you're there and you are participating. I hope this was helpful to you. Zoom's an incredible tool. I use it a lot with my customers. If someone wants to buy or sell a piece of real estate, getting on a Zoom and talking to them about what they want is essential and very, very helpful. But there's ways to do it right and there's ways to do it wrong. If this was helpful to you, please let me know in the comments. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out. If you're looking to buy or sell real estate, reach out to me. I'll put you with one of my agents. And if you want to get your real estate license, or you are an agent, want to join the team, join Real Estate Finder. I'd love to work with you to make 2026 and 27 the best years that we've all had in real estate and in your career. If you've always wanted to become a real estate agent, I love training new agents. We have ways to get into real estate school. We get you your real estate license here in Florida. Join our team. We'll train you to be a real estate agent. If you're a licensed real estate agent already and want to do better, do more in your career, make more money, I'd love to sit down with you and help you get to where you're going, achieve all of your goals, whether it's business, real estate, financial, social, business networking, charitable, whatever your goals are. Matthew Maschler here to help. Want to make your 2026 and 27 the best years they could possibly be. Love to connect with you. Whatever you need, real estate wise, business, social, philanthropy, we're trying to make everything just better and better so that as we age and we get better, you age, you get better, we all get better together. All right, so thank you for joining us on the Real Estate Finder podcast. I hope this was helpful. Please, someone let me know, do you like this format where I make YouTube videos and you get to listen to it? I could go back to the old format. But we needed to create some content, and that's what we do, create content. Thank you for joining us on the Real Estate Founder Podcast.
The future looks bright and the storms pass by. The sky's dark blue and it's almost that time. Light shows, cameras flash when I pass. Living in the moment, forget about the past. They save the best for last. Matthew Mania, we about to make a splash. Life is a marathon full of sharp turns. Gotta keep pace while the hands on the clock turns. High stakes, 5-star real estate. I run a show, you can tell the boss in the place. Electricity, energy, it vibrates. I'm always on time even if I'm late. I make dreams come true, living my life, hope the same for you. Success in my sights, got a real clear view. If you don't know the time, I'll give you a clue. You know what time, you know what time, you know what time it is. Yeah. You know what time, you know what time, you know what time it is. You know what time, you know what time, you know what time it is. You know what time, you know what time, you know what time it is. You know what time it is. You know what time it is. You know what time it is.